that land is being seen as an important, it's understood that it's an important part of the equation, and I think it's not only a matter of risk, land degradation carry out many risks, but that is becoming an opportunity. And I think the opportunity, the message that there is really a value to create for everyone by implementing sustainable land management is there. And there are two market failures to address. The fact that we need to better understand the risk, and we need agronomists, land use experts in banks to better improve the risk and to better recognize all the value that land is generating. But so land, I think, is entering the finance world with this opportunity angle, and we need to increase this awareness. And second is, in a way, to transform the system, food system in particular. There is really a new era of coalitions. Private sector cannot act alone, civil society cannot act alone, public sector cannot act alone, so coalitions of actors are very important. And in this regard, I think the LDN Fund is already, has been a great experience for me, being director of the fund, to establish this great collaboration first between a UN convention and a private fund manager, but also with civil society. We have a great partnership with WWF, with IDH in the Netherlands, working with the CSO panel of the UNCCD, working with the science and academia with the UNCCD SPI, working with investors, private investors like Fondation here in the room, or public investors like French Development Agency, EIB. And I think the coalitions are really the right tool to move important topics forward. The challenge is to make this organization work together, and it's also about people connecting with another, about creating groups of partners, understanding each other, speaking the same language, and willing to move forward this new agenda. So, yeah, land entering finance and supporting this type of multi-stakeholder coalition is, I think, the two topics I would like to point out. Thank you.
Two excellent points. Thank you, Gautier. So land has value. We need to value it. And the next one is the stakeholders and coalitions, which goes back to the original point that you raised about you need to have the right stakeholders around the table from the beginning to design interventions for things to be longer term. Okay, before we wrap up and go to Femo for key messages, are there any burning questions or clarification questions from the audience? Maybe we can take one or two. Yeah? Sir, please be short.
There will be a Q&A just after, so one or two comments.
Thank you, Chair. Sustainability is just understood by keep going in a normal sense. As far as the small farmers are concerned across the world, as rightly pointed by this, I'm sorry I'm not able to, no, yeah. Very rightly pointed out, sustainability means economic sustainability and viability of the only way to get across this land restoration and utilization efficiently is by increasing the depth of the land by 2 feet minimum across the world. If not, at least by 1 foot. Depth has to be there. That is what is the meaning of land restoration, to avoid desertification, drought, and degradation, and all that, so on and so forth. As far as the farmers are concerned, there has to be across the world a crop discipline. That means, as driven by demand and supply across the world. When demand and supply are seriously considered as the criterion for development, automatically every farmer will have to have a kind of set of assured guarantees, either it is from the private sector or from the government sector, that they have to buy the product produced by the farmers, so that the farmer is not put to loss under all circumstances. This is what is called as restoration and sustainability.
Thank you.
Shall I introduce myself then? Yeah. My name is Habtold Misgina from Eritrea, East Africa, the Horn of Africa. Yeah. By default, I felt at home here. Last time, the science group invited me to summarize the session with live painting. I was on that corner, but today, with my poem, I'm just here so that the lines will tell you more about me and my feeling. And as the saying goes in my village in Africa, for a wise person, if you tell him one, he makes it by himself a million. So I will simply say some beautiful lines, and you will make them many and spread them. The poem goes like this. The title says, The Response. A response to our planet's call. Yes, a response to our heart's call. With delight to play our role. For nothing is more important than persuading the heart. For a cause, for a passion, that is where we should stand. Not in fragments, but hand in hand. I think that is what we are meant by joining science and art. From where we could stand, let's advance to the hate, from where we could see the sight and choose what's wrong and what's right. With treasure to share, with the power that could shatter, with the lives that matter, let's advance to the hate, from where we could see the sight and choose what's wrong and what is right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, two very interesting interventions from the floor. I'm wondering if any of the panelists would like to clarify further or have anything to add. Yeah.
So I just want to add that the CEO of GEF was here, and she said that the issue is last mile connectivity. And I think the last mile connectivity is there because there's a problem in the design process of how funds are allocated and how they're used. And that happens because the ultimate stakeholders, like farmers, I'm talking about the farming community, are called for consultations. And I have had the privilege of going for many consultations across the world, but they are consultations. They will consult you, and they will do what they still want to do. And my suggestion is that you got to get stakeholders on the design table, where you design the actual process. So like it was said, it's not the project that's important, it's the process and the delivery that's important. Till farmers are not part of the designing of that process, delivery is going to fail often. And to say that 63% of the projects are successful or satisfactory, I think so satisfactory is a qualitative term which the academics can use as they want. It's not the term that actually defines progress, or I don't think so. It is a quantitative measure of saying what should have happened and what did not happen. And lastly, I say is that no funding is being given to document failures. Till the system does not document failures, they will get repeated in different geographies and different circumstances. I mean, this is my learning. I mean, lots of people may be in disagreement of it, but when God made farmers, He never gave them tactfulness, and you got to. These are what I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Well, I still can't get this. Yeah, the microphone technology is not working with me today. Before I give the floor to Femel to wrap up, any other perspectives to be shared by the panelists? No? Okay, so we give the floor to you, Famo, to wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you to the panelists. I like the structure of this session because it started with the science, even the previous one. I think it's always important to go back to that, to how we understand concepts, how we conceptualize the way we see the world and understand it. So I think this subject of sustainability is an interesting one because I think we think about it differently now than we did maybe 10, 15 years ago, where we were thinking about some kind of equilibrium state where things are just, not disturbed, which obviously doesn't work. It's not true. So I think to me, it's about also maybe charting a different path and understanding what that is, the costs and benefits of it, and managing the trade-offs and understanding what those trade-offs are, and deciding for yourself whether you're going to put the economic benefit first and environmental one last or social one last. I think we've heard a lot in this session about appealing to the human emotion and taking care of the social capital and human capital. So, and this is what will, I understand, trigger the transformation that we need to see happening in what we do. So my colleague from IFAD spoke about the new things that we're learning now in the GEF 6 IAP, the need to come together and bring in different comparative advantages of each other, crowd in the different views and perspectives and experiences of different partners around the table. Everybody is also talking about that, multi-stakeholder platforms. They need to bring in a plurality of views to understand the problem and therefore come up with the solutions together is what will actually sustain whatever good things we put in place and ensure that beyond projects, beyond programs, they are also able to be sustained. The processes that we engage in need to also be sustainable. You don't want to invest time and money in something that is going to fall apart or actually generate new problems. Once projects finish and you find that there are so-called white elephants or conflict even arising because you've come into a particular system or community and disrupted it without actually understanding enough the potential impacts of the processes and results of your action. We heard about the need to really understand the perspective of the people that we're trying to work or design solutions for. And in fact, we shouldn't be designing solutions for them, but rather with them. The farmers, for instance, the need for us to understand their challenge at a very micro scale instead of thinking at a project level, projectizing things too much without understanding the potential impact at individual, but also at societal level. And transformation will be catalyzed by appealing to that human emotion and investing in social and human capital and ensuring that you're not just giving someone a spade, but also ensuring that they know how to use that spade and actually they want the spade and want to use it. So that transformation will come from there, and that's where I think this links to the previous session. That's where you will see replication and scaling up actually becoming an organic, I think, type of process, as opposed to one that is somewhat forced. And peer-to-peer learning is an important part of that, as we have heard, and this is how you will sustain action, I guess, on the ground. We heard from the LDN Fund that we need to get with the program, so to speak. Land is entering the world of finance, as to quote him, and therefore we need to be able to also speak the language and be able to engage this new type of stakeholder or partner and speak the language of finance and being able to talk about how it return on investments for these new financiers that come into the space, and are actually becoming change agents themselves, and talking about SDGs as well, the same way that we are doing. But also we are, at the same time, we are struggling to speak their language of finance. So we need to actually see them as an important part of the coalitions that we need to be forming, these multi-stakeholder platforms that bring these different experiences and views together. I think that's kind of what I gleaned from the conversation. Thank you.
You did a wonderful job. That was probably one of the most challenging wrap-up, given the diversity of views as well as panelists here. So thank you so much. I just want to give a round of applause to all the panelists for your perspectives and your patience. And so this is going to be the end of the sustainability session, and I think we're going to move right on to the questions and answers round, right? Okay, let me give the microphone to Ulrich.
Yes, and we have now just 15 minutes left for a little wrap-up session. And actually, I want to change the program and keep you for 15 more minutes, and also ask Geeta, please, to join us so that you can all help me to wrap up the session. I think what I also wanted to do is first to invite some comments or questions from the floor on the summary of all three sessions. What is your take-home message? But I want to challenge you, please do it in 3 words only. So if you have a comment or a question, please try to stick to 3 keywords in your take-home message. Any takers? Anyone who would like to try in 3 words? Or maybe 5.
Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you very much. So I will not be able to do it in 3 minutes, but 3 words, but I'll try to be brief. So my name is Rasha. I work for the International Fund for Agriculture Development here in India. And from the Indian experience, there were 2 points that I would like to share with the panel as well as with the audience. The first point is, if you want to create a mass movement, the answer may be in disruptive innovations. This has been tried quite a lot in India in a number of issues. For example, what we call the Jan Dhan Yojana, so with the identity card, mobile, and bank account, and with that, a whole new opportunities were open to the rural poor or urban poor, whereby a lot of benefit schemes could be channeled directly to them, and they could use them to the best and most efficient way. The second is learning about the grassroots movement in India, especially in terms of self-help groups. A lot of the good practices and stewardship of land, good land care, is actually practiced by the women members of these self-help groups. We're talking about 5 million self-help groups today, about 56 million women, more than 250,000 different community cadres who are supporting their advice, extension services, good practices, and so forth. So please take a look at these experiences, because I think it will really change the way we design projects in our agencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. But we have one over there, the lady first. Over there, please.
Thank you very much. I've been really trying to do it in 5 words. So difficult. Yekaterina Lengefeld, Amrita University, India. Thank you, all of you, for wonderful sessions. Very inspiring. My question is on Graziella. Can you please give examples of the new policy developments on the cultural changes? Thank you.
Yeah, please, Graciela, please take the question and then.
Well, that's a quite a challenging question to think just straight on an example, but I think the culture, the policies you begin influencing aspects of policy that will enable you to then do the kind of cultural changes. I would reflect on the grassroots, for instance, or the disruptive technology. It's also about policies that enable this combination from top-down and bottom-up, and this is a kind of cultural change for policy makers. And sometimes I would say that this might be the kind of cultural policy changes for those that make the policy, not only for the ones that are then having to experience what the policy says. I could email you some more specific examples that could come later to my mind.
Thank you, Graciela. I would like now to turn to our panelists, and I would like to challenge you as well for a very, very short, brief take-home message. And maybe we can stick to a maximum of 5 points now that we have only 10 minutes left. Please, Geeta, maybe in 5 points your take-home away message.
Okay, now I'm going to combine several points into one to make it 5. Anyway, I think we started off this morning with evaluation findings, and it was very encouraging to hear them reiterated throughout the day, and the points highlighted that we found in several evaluations of the GEF portfolio. I just want to highlight a few main takeaways from the day. I think transformation is a process. It's not a final state of nirvana or salvation. It requires continuous adaptation and continuous work throughout the project cycle and even post-completion, after projects are completed. I don't think one thing has come up during the day, which is what we found is land degradation impacts to reduce deforestation and improve lands takes a lot of time. The earliest we found is a lag period of at least a minimum of 5 years. So let's not try and plan to be over-ambitious in terms of time, but know that it takes a significant amount of time to achieve change. The third is think ambitious and plan big. We heard this throughout the day, but that doesn't mean that projects necessarily or programs need to be big. Small and medium can still be beautiful. So we found evidence of a lot of medium-sized and small-sized projects to be pretty transformative as well. Learning from success and learning from failure, like one of the panelists said. And I think what we're trying to do in the evaluation office is actually promote learning experiences from failure by awarding people who come forward, who have taken risks and are willing to actually share some of those failures. Strong ownership has been one, highlighted throughout the day. Stakeholder engagement, right from project design, is imperative. And finally, we've heard a lot on private sector engagement. What our evaluation results clearly point to is creating a level playing field by good policy reform and regulations in place. Without that, you're not going to get the private sector to take the risks or to innovate or to have disruptive innovation for that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Very clear take-home messages from Geeta. And the last one was on the private sector, so maybe I could immediately turn to Gauthier and put him on the spot and ask for his take-home messages.
Thank you, Ulrich. Not easy. I think part of all this discussion about the private sector was here to see the coalition of different actors playing each a role in all the value chain of the project, and this either input supplier, financial partners, restoration entrepreneur. It's important that we put we have the ability to put everyone together, and this requires further support to build this network of partners, and probably we need to have more private sector also in the room to facilitate this development. So there is a challenge to reach out to more sector, to more people, startups. We speak a lot of innovation. We need to have this startup network also mobilized, because the youth, the millennials are here to bring really disruptive innovation, and they should also really definitely be part of this project. So innovation, collaboration, big corporations have also a role to play in sending the right market signals and really shifting the market to transform it into more sustainability. I don't know if I am really wrapping up or maybe bringing new ideas, but I think it's what came up in my mind now. Thank you.
Thank you. No, there's really excellent points, and I hope somebody is taking note or recording this session. I think we are getting really good lessons learned out of this session. Mr. Akkar, may I turn to you for some short take-home messages from your perspective?
I think I'm hopeful that we're moving in the right direction, but I'm very confused of if there's a destination and when we will reach that destination. I don't know the pace of reform or the transformation that will take place. I think so that's